The top stories: scholars call for stronger ties between Africans and the diaspora. And AU official emphasizes the need for healing from enduring impact of colonialism. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to EBC World English News with me, Faraolago, and thank you for watching us. Now, in his recent message, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has welcomed participants of the 38th African Union Summit to Ethiopia. The Premier has encouraged all participants of the 38th AU Summit to extend their stay and experience the rich history, diverse cultures, and breathtaking landscapes that make Ethiopia truly the land of origins. From ancient heritage sites to vibrant traditions and unparalleled natural beauty, there is so much to discover beyond the summit, the Prime Minister underscored. Welcome to your home, the Prime Minister has said. Moving on, the head of delegation and Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Cape Verde and Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa have arrived earlier this morning in Addis Ababa. Upon arrival at Bole International Airport, they were greeted by senior officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Foreign Affairs ministers and senior officials of the member states of the AU have been arriving in Addis Ababa to partake in a two-day 46th AU ordinary session of the Executive Council. Tunisian Foreign Minister and Libyan Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Minister also arrived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to participate in the 46th AU ordinary session of the Executive Council. The two ministers were warmly welcomed by Ethiopian officials. The 46th ordinary session of the Executive Council of the African Union will officially kick off on Wednesday. Foreign Affairs ministers and senior officials of the member states of the AU have been arriving in Addis Ababa to partake the two-day session.
Ethiopia.
Welcome back. Now, a united Africa could grant nearly 20 landlocked nations immediate access to the sea opening immense opportunities across marine-based sectors. Experts in education and infrastructure speaking to EBC World emphasized the need for Africans in the diaspora to rely on each other across multiple fields. Reflecting on this year's AU theme, they underscored the importance of engaging in discussions on reparations to better understand the continent's history and celebrate African excellence. Tegustanesa takes it from here.
The idea of a united Africa that is free, independent, and in control of its own destiny resonates with fully realizing the continent Africans deserve to live in. Approached by EBC World Education and Infrastructure, experts urge Africans and African diaspora to depend on each other on multifaceted areas. Reflecting on this year's AU's theme, they have reiterated that having discussions on reparation to have more understanding of the past is good, so does celebrating African excellence.
I think that Africans and African diasporans need to count on each other. I think that we need to stop depending on Europeans or Americans for support. Yes, I am an advocate of reparations, but even more, I'm an advocate of unity. And I think that that's our most powerful resource, is our united nature. And I think that we need to return to that. That's our natural nature.
I think having discussion and having understanding of the past and having some kind of remorse would be, I think, a reparation. And also maybe as an African countries, we have to look back also what happened to the black people, what they went through, and having the acknowledgement and having or celebrating the success stories, the excellence, could be also some moral value and respect, and also inviting to the I call them historical diasporans. And that would be a sort of reparation also from the African side. So I think it's a big deal that the African Union has this theme this year. It's been done at the UN level too. The UN, there is a reparation forum at the UN. So I think the Africans are also following through. So I think it's a very good and important theme, I would say.
How do we become visionaries and not just think about ourselves, but think about our next 7 generations at least? I think about the next 200 generations because I think about the entire 3rd millennium. And so one of my areas of focus is around 3rd millennium mindset, a 3rd millennium skills development. And so that's about having a unity consciousness. That's about people understanding that we're interconnected, people understanding that we should be interdependent. And so it's not about an I mindset, it's a we mindset, an Ubuntu mindset, right? And so I think that we just need to go back to our roots. And we're more global now. So yeah, you know, it may have been more tribal roots where there's unity, but we have to move beyond that and understand that we are still all one, and we need to move in that way, and we need to be able to trust each other and to be able to count on each other. And I think that a vision will help us to be able to be motivated to move in that way.
Despite the cultural diversity that exists among us, the African people, there is a far greater degree of cultural unity that exists wherever one finds Africans in the world. This is especially obvious in the common African ethos that binds the continent together as one. Core values of humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism are demonstrated among the masses everywhere.
The Executive Director of CAFOR, Dr. Lowly Cole, urges global accountability and reparations to address the lasting impacts of colonialism on Africa, emphasizing the need for healing and justice. In an exclusive interview with EBC English, the Executive Director issued a powerful call for global recognition and historical wrongdoings committed during colonialism. Alula Taklamariam reports.
The Executive Director of Coalition on Media and Education for Development Africa Forum, also known as CAFOR, Dr. Loali Cole, urges global accountability and reparations to address the lasting impacts of colonialism on Africa. He urged the international community, including the UN, to acknowledge the lasting impacts of colonialism and establish mechanisms for accountability and compensation. The scars of colonialism continue to affect Africa's development, from economic disparities to social and political instability, Dr. Cole stated.
There have been systemic discrimination of Africans and black people in general around the world by the majority of people around the world who are not black people. And there are a lot of injustices that we have had. And this team also is a part of a broader movement for justice and equity for African nations and people of African descent worldwide. Okay? They are necessary. Why? Because they address the long-term economic, social, and cultural impacts of colonialism, slavery, apartheid, and racial discrimination.
He underscored that it is time for the Western world to confront its past and take responsibility for the injustices inflicted on the African continent. During his Zoom meeting with ABC English, Dr. Cole emphasized that reparations should go beyond financial compensation to include investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure to address the systemic inequalities rooted in colonial exploitation.
So, I think what is important for right now is for the whole world, including the United Nations, to recognize and document these atrocities that were committed against African people. Okay? Also, although we're not looking at financial compensation per se, but we should ensure that direct economic support to affected communities, including funding for education, healthcare, and infrastructure, should really, be paramount. These countries should help us in Africa. Because if Africans had stayed in Africa and not taken away as slaves and destroyed our communities, destroyed our cultural systems, I think Africa would have been much better.
The call for international accountability also highlighted the role of the UN in facilitating dialogue between African nations and former colonial powers.
When we talk about reparations, we're not talking about compensation at this point financially, but also we have to look at changes in policy from these countries. We have to look at the cultural preservations and also what we call international accountability, because the international community should be accountable to all peoples of the world, around the world. We belong to the United Nations. We belong to big bodies like the African Union, and I think there should be accountability on that. Okay? Now, the AU is there, and we are happy that the AU has taken up this thing. And of course, the AU should begin now, because we should begin the dialogue. The continental and global dialogue on historical injustices should start now. We should be talking about it without fear or favor. We should engage our governments in Africa. We should engage our RECs, our regional economic communities, as well as the international organizations, so the United Nations organizations and other international organizations, to look at these issues very, very critically and to address them. Not only to look at them, but to address them. We should also promote advocacy as well as diplomatic pressure on our former colonial powers for meaningful reparations. Reparations should come in many formats.
He also stressed the importance of engaging African diaspora and creating a global framework to ensure transparency and fairness in addressing historical grievances.
African diaspora is everywhere. They are everywhere in the Western countries, in the Eastern countries, in the Middle East, everywhere they are. And as I said, they constitute a very, very important component for African development. And the amount of monies they are bringing to Africa is far more than what the World Bank and all these loans we are getting, all these grants we are getting, coming to Africa.
And finally, the Global Black History, Heritage and Education Center is gaining remarkable momentum, with its council convening in Addis Ababa to highlight growing regional and international support. The center's president, former Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister Dammaqe Mekonnen, emphasized the importance of celebrating Africa's rich black history and educating future generations. The African Union Commission has pledged its full support, aligning the center's mission with the AU's vision for the continent's cultural and educational development. Johannes Fantaun has more on that.
The Global Black History, Heritage and Education Center has gained momentum, as highlighted during its council meeting. Former Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister and President of the center, Demeqa Mekonnen, emphasized the fundamental importance of black history to African people, urging the embrace of Africa's rich heritage through education.
Black history is not merely a chapter in a textbook. It is a fundamental aspect of our national identity. Our narrative is a rich fountain interwoven with threads of achievement and hope, echoing the voice of advocates for our humanity. Education is a pivotal in this journey, empowering us to understand our past and envision a brighter future. We must advocate for curricula that authentically reflects our contributions, ensuring our narratives are essential chapters in this African saga. Focusing on a liberated African version of education involves both embracing the wisdom of the past and equipping with the new generations of young Africans with the capabilities needed to be innovative and competitive in the face of intense global competition.
The African Union Commission AUC has also expressed its full support for the center, with AU representative Angela Martin stating the AUC's readiness to engage in formal discussions, noting the alignment of the center's purpose and strategies with the African Union's vision for Africa.
The African Union believes in the importance of protecting our history, culture, and identity. This is in line with our main policy instruments, including the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance and the work of the African Union Center for Linguistic Studies and History by Oral Traditions, CELTO, with headquarters in Niamey, Niger. The work of the Global Black Center is valuable because it helps to keep our shared heritage alive, tells our stories, and educates future generations. We strongly support the Global Black Center mission and objectives and recognize the role it plays in promoting African and Black history worldwide.
Echoing the sentiment, Russian ambassador to Ethiopia, Evgeny Tarikin, conveyed a message of solidarity, emphasizing that people who don't remember their past have no future. He added that the center's mission aligns with the African Union's Assembly theme for 2025, reinforcing the importance of understanding history and culture for the continent's progress.
We should remember one wise saying, that the people who don't remember his past has no future. Therefore, history, culture, education are of paramount meaning for the building of better future, of keeping the freedom of our peoples. I am happy to notice that today's meeting in fact coincides with the beginning of regular summit of African Union, which will be held under the motto of justice and reparation for the peoples of Africa and of African origin.
Global Black History, Heritage and Education Center is a Pan-African initiative by Black scholars, historians, activists and educators to build a center that will study, organize, document, rebuild and reclaim African historical heritage and artifacts for the better future of Africa and its people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching ABC World English News. Now, a quick recap of the top stories. Scholars called for stronger ties between Africans and the diaspora. And AU official emphasizes the need for healing from enduring impact of colonialism. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end of today's news. Many thanks for watching us. Bye-bye.